Okay, so hello everybody. First of all, thank you Remy for the introduction. Thank you very much to the organizers for inviting me, giving me this chance to talk here. And I should also say congratulations for setting this up. This is something I would have anyway participated if I would have known about it. Some of my students are participating, and I'm really looking forward to some interesting talks today. So, as Remy said, I was given the chance to talk to you about education and fusion. So my name is Alf Köhn-Seemann. I'm from the University of Stuttgart. However, today here I'm in my role as being the Board of Governors of FuseNet, about which I will talk to you. Now, I know that for some of you it's very early. It's 7 a.m. in the morning. For me, it's lunchtime, so I already had a few coffees. But I want to start very smoothly into this conference by giving a bit of a motivation, because I know that some students are also here, a bit of motivation why it is worth working in Fusion. And don't worry, I only have 2 slides for that. I don't give like the standard Fusion talk here. I just like to have this as a nice and smooth starting point. So here, this is number one motivation slide, energy consumption per year as a function of year, so as time. And I have plotted here 6 major energy sources, primary energy sources. And you see, first of all, the top 3, these are the fossil sources, oil, coal, and gas. They are increasing over time. You see the COVID dip here, but this has, of course, been restored. And at the bottom, I have plotted nuclear, this kind of purplish thing. Warning, I'm slightly colorblind. I guess it's purple. This purplish thing, which is a bit constant. And in the last years, we have solar and wind increasing here. So the major point why I'm showing this here is there seems to be an increase in energy demand. You could say, okay, well, maybe this stabilizes over time. So now I have a more complicated plot, motivation number 2, which is more complicated, but which tells us much more information as well. And I will walk you through that, don't worry. So what I have plotted here is the primary energy consumption per capita as a function of the GDP per capita. Different symbols, or each symbol represents one country, where the colors represent different areas on the Earth, indicated in the legend on the top left. Different symbol sizes indicate the population. So that is a complicated plot. First of all, first thing to notice, if you want to have, let's say, a higher GDP here, I interpret this as having a higher standard of living. You could also, instead I should have plotted maybe the social progress index, which is a different quantity, but I'm choosing here specifically the GDP because it's a bit easier. Anyway, higher GDP means a bit higher wealth, meaning having a better life, to say it simple. Higher GDP, however, seems to be correlated somehow with a higher primary energy consumption. There are a few notable exceptions like United Arab Emirates, Singapore, Qatar, but usually if you look at the European countries, Germany, for example, here, or the United States here, across the pond, as we like to say, higher GDP means higher energy consumption. Now we have a lot of countries which are on the lower left corner of this plot. This is particularly India and China, or the African countries you cannot see, they are hidden here. But India and China in particular have the biggest symbol sizes here, meaning it's the biggest countries. Now, if these plots, and of course we want them to move to the right, because we want to have them a higher GDP, we want them to have a higher standard of living, then they move up in energy consumption as well. They move up in this plot. And since they have such a massive symbol size, and remember this is per capita here, there is a lot of energy demand increase in the near future to come. So this is something which we should all be aware of, and this is the motivation for what we are working here. By the way, of course, all of this plot is freely available. I'm not only an advocate of open source science, but in general of open science. And this data you can freely get and play around and make plots like this, what I have done here. So Fusion is here to help. You know this. Advantages of Fusion. The fuel is kind of unlimited, let's say in practically concerns. One important aspect, it's equally distributed around the globe, something which is not often mentioned. No greenhouse gas produced by the process itself. It is intrinsically safe, in quotation marks, and only short-term storage of radioactive material is needed. Now, there are a lot of challenges we, and in particular that means you, need to solve and I looked at the schedule, and there are basically all of these problems are addressed by one of the talks. So one is operation with alpha particle heating being the dominant mechanism needs to be demonstrated. We all know that the heat exhaust in demo type devices is a complete different story than in ITER because it's just on a different order of magnitude. So we need advanced diverter concepts. We need, for example, dedicated experiments like the DTT device, which is currently being built in Frascati, Italy. The neutron flux challenge is a significant challenge for the structural integrity of the first wall. There's another, again, an experiment being built, with Donis in Granada, Spain. And the tritium breeding cycle, already also mentioned by Remy, needs to be demonstrated as well. However, there's one thing which is often completely regarded, and that is a sufficient number of young talents. This is something we very much rely on, particularly since fusion industry is growing in the last years. And when you talk to some recruiters, it might be, for us, I work at a medium-sized university, with a small fusion group. It is okay, we still are able to get PhD students, but if you talk to people who want to get postdocs, and this includes myself, this includes people at big research institutes, this includes companies, at the postdoc level it's getting really hard because there's a very high competition, so we need more young talents. And this is exactly where FuseNet comes into play, where I work at. Now at FuseNet we have this very crowded graph to introduce what we are. So FuseNet is a European fusion education network. And it is basically operated by these two people on the top right. This is Dario and Myra, who run the FuseNet, the executive office. And FuseNet has the goal to coordinate activities about fusion research in Europe. So let's have a look at a few of these points in detail. So first of all, who are we? As I said, the goal is to coordinate the fusion activities in Europe. At the moment, we are 66 members. On the right-hand side, you can see a map across Europe. The different markers indicate each a member. So we have 45 universities, and then there are some research centers, and even 6 companies are being part of FuseNet at the moment. We have a board of governors, where I'm a member of, which are appointed by the General Assembly. At the moment, we are 8 in the board of governors, or 10 I think, yeah. And we kind of set the course of FuseNet and set certain actions of which I will talk about. FuseNet has supported something like 900, so this is, I think now it's more 900 students since 2014. For the details, it is a Eurofusion associated entity since 2014, and you can find all type of information on the website listed here. Okay, fine. Now, but what is FuseNet doing? FuseNet in particular is focusing on 2 things. And number 1 is promote education in fusion. This is something we are really putting a lot of effort into it. So we provide training and provide training opportunities, meaning we give training sessions by ourselves, but we create the infrastructure, let's say, where training opportunity, where training can be given. We produce and also provide educational material, to which I will come later on again. Secondly, is we strongly believe in the value of networking events. So we provide setups, or we provide these events itself with the aim to have an active student community, students talking to each other. We want students to talk to research facilities, because if you remember the map of Europe, which I have shown, in particular, for example, we have some members, we have the Kharkiv University is also a member, and these people have a hard time at the moment to travel, for example, to Zermatt. But they can, we can put them into contact and then provide also mobility funds. And then we can connect students with the fusion industry and also with startups, of course. This is what we do as well. And doing all this, we believe, or we strongly, I mean, belief is the wrong word, I'm still saying it. We believe in the value of open education. And by belief, I mean, we look at research and which tells us that open education is a good thing. Now, what is open education? Let me read this quote, which kind of defines it. So open education is a way of carrying out education, often using digital technologies. Its aim is to widen access, participation to everyone by removing barriers and by making learning accessible, abundant, and customizable for everybody. It offers multiple ways of teaching, learning, building, and sharing knowledge. I think that's a very useful definition from the European Commission. And the major point is that open education reduces and removes barriers to education. And barriers can be cost, so money, barriers can be geography, and barriers can be time, because of course if you have things like, for example, and here I shamelessly self-advocate some lectures I put on YouTube during the COVID times, you can self-study these lectures whenever you want. There's no need to do it during the day. Sometimes people have commitments during the day, having a job, for example, to pay the rent. Then you can do your study in the afternoon or in the night. Now, it's not only that I think that open education is good. There's also research. If you look into research, since you're a researcher, let's look into research. There are multiple benefits according to studies which you get from open education resources. It's actually, you can measure that the enrollment rates are enhanced. You get higher quality of education material. Of course, that's a bit subjective, but in principle, the general idea is if you want to make it open, usually you redo the existing material and by that improve it. Interestingly enough, it reduces the mental stress, not only of the student, but also of the teacher. And it fosters a collaborative working culture. And to improve the usage of such open educational resources, support and resources for teachers must be provided. And this is also what FuseNet is trying to do. This is what we are at FuseNet also working on. Now, okay, why is this guy talking about open education? This is an open source software conference. These two things are very connected to each other. So, you know, there are benefits of using open source software for e-learning environments. So we all know this e-learning environments. At my university, Ilias is used. I know Moodle is used at other universities. So using open source software there, if you look into literature again, what are the benefits? Benefits are having no license fee. Again, removing entry barriers. They are customizable. You probably very much know that universities, as we say in Germany, often like to cook their own soup. And this is their being customizable from as a platform is a necessity. Because each uni has probably unique requirements. And it allows for continuous improvement because, usually there's a kind of the open source community behind it, or you have a few guys and they can just improve the software. Open source software in general contributes to a culture of openness, as it is framed in this journal, from which higher education in general can only benefit. I think Remy very nicely introduced it in the beginning. And in general, it offers unique opportunities to collaborate. I love to use it with students when the students can work jointly together on a project, either sitting together in the classroom or being remotely very spread apart. This is no problem. This is what open source software allows you to do. And there are many great examples discussed that will be discussed at this conference. And of course, something which you should really not overlook is if there is some kind of ransomware attacks, which some of the very big research institutes being connected today suffered from. Open source software allows, at least in principle, for quick changes, improving the security. Okay, now let's build the bridge to fusion research. Fusion research and open source software have a lot in common. So extensive collaboration and circulation are central to the open source movement. And in particular, the extensive collaboration is something which is central to fusion research as well. So let's go back in history to fusion and fusion research and look at 1958. 1958 was the second conference on peaceful use of atomic energy in Geneva, and there fusion research was declassified in 1958. And then in 1968, 69, 68 was the date when the colleagues from Soviet Union measured or announced their kind of breakthrough results in their T3 tokamak, having exceeded temperatures of a few keV. People were a bit skeptical, and they invited scientists from the UK to bring their own diagnostics. These are drawings from fusion scientists at that time, how they put their diagnostic into a train, went with a train from London, from the UK to Moscow, put their diagnostic into the stock market and basically confirmed these experiments. So despite the Cold War, this was collaborations like these were possible at that time. And of course, the major example, I mean, as I said, collaboration is key in fusion research, and the major example for that is basically ITER. And for those who are not aware, ITER was basically, you could say it was conceived in Geneva again when Reagan and Gorbachev met in 1958, with World War III being around the corner. Maybe despite, or maybe as an answer to a threat of that, ITER was born. And remember, ITER represents half of the world's population, or 73 of the global gross domestic product, and that is quite something. Okay, back to that figure. I've talked to you, or I told you who we are and what we are doing. Not in detail, however, how we are doing it. So let me give you a few examples of what FuseNet is actually doing. What are the measures where we're trying to do what I described? First of all, we have the European Fusion Teacher Day. This is an online event happening simultaneously in Europe. Last year it was in 29 countries. We had 300 teachers participating. Of course, it is for free. And it works such that on this one day, we have a set of local sessions where, for example, I would give a talk in German about about fusion in general, or maybe somebody from the Max Planck Institute would give a talk in German to physics teachers usually, followed by a joint international session where usually also a virtual ITER tour is part of it, which is quite nice. And most importantly, I guess, for the teachers is that at FuseNet we have produced educational material in English and in the local language, available under a Creative Commons license, meaning it's easy and very clear for the teachers how to use this material. Of course, it's not only available for the teachers, you can just download it here and use it for your own purposes. This is tailored at different age groups, and this is a very important thing, I guess. Then we have student events, or we have the student event, which also happens in gather.town. You hopefully all are aware of that, what that is, I guess. Last year we had 350 registrations. We had more than 100 participants at once, with again 6 keynote speakers, with a panel discussion with the startups. This was a very good thing. It is open to all bachelor and master students which are interested in fusion. So you get a good introduction in the whole fusion topic there. So this is something where everybody can join, regardless of if you're being a FuseNet member or not. So for every student, for every supervisor, maybe here, this is interesting today. Then our biggest in-person meeting is the PhD event. Last year it took place, so this is a yearly event. Last year it took place in Stuttgart, where I'm located, so we organized it in Stuttgart. We had 120 PhD students who were doing something fusion related, who came together. Very important to note, accommodation is completely covered by FuseNet, so no argument for a supervisor to tell you, no, don't come, because accommodation is included. Yes, you have to cover the travel costs by yourself or by your research institutes, by your university, but that is usually good deals can be found. We had 6 keynote speakers, as indicated. For example, here we had student talks, 32 Pecha talks, 90 poster presentations. Here you see poster presentation. And I could say maybe most importantly, we give at this event enough room for the students to talk to each other. So we had social activities. Last year it was a vineyard tour with some wine tasting. So the idea is that you get inspired before that, some nice keynote talks, and then in the afternoon we have this kind of social activities where all the students can connect to each other, talk to each other, and hopefully learn something to each other and connect with each other. We have a matchmaking portal. The matchmaking is just a thing on our website where we as supervisors can enter our open positions. I think all of our last 4 PhD students found the open positions on this website. You can enter, as an employer can enter internship positions, PhD positions, job, whatever positions. And this is something which is quite popular. If you want to enter your positions, just get in touch. It's quite popular among students, I have to say. One thing I have not talked about is diversity. Diversity is something which we care about a lot recently. And why is that the case? Because you might, I'm not sure who said that first, but you might have heard this quote first, that talent is distributed equally, opportunities are not, unfortunately. And here I have included a plot which shows the female percentage in a physics group in the DPG, which is the German Physical Society, and of that the subsection plasma physics. Why have I chosen that one? Because the data is freely available and it is the largest physical society in the world, even larger than the American one, so it is a good database. You see this is female percentage as a group of age, and in the plasma physics division you see the older the people get, the member gets, the smaller the female percentage, and that is what is also referred to as a leaky pipeline in STEM. In science, technology, engineering, and math, which we have, unfortunately. This is something we need to work on. Now, is it really something which is worth working on? Yes, it is. Apart from the general idea that diversity is good, there's, of course, you can measure that as well. Increasing diversity in academia is for the benefit of the whole community, because having a more diverse team, you can actually measure that you are getting better, that your team is getting better at problem-solving skills. Interestingly enough, it also boosts your citations. In the industry, it is very clear measures that diverse workforces lead to a better performance of the companies. You can measure the outcome of the company, that it gets better when you have a more diverse workforce. And at FuseNet, we actively support diversity, equity, and inclusion. Of course, we not only make these type of nice lanyards, which are nice, but I mean, this is one thing to do. What we do is as well, we try to take care that we have talks at our events which tackle this topic, and also take care that there's no such thing as a male, meaning an only male lineup, that it is a diverse lineup and similar type of things. So I have a few minutes left, so enough time to summarize. So to summarize and conclude, first of all, I try to give you an overview about FuseNet's role in fusion education. And as a reminder, we have, I think on the top, we have the student events, which are good to connect the students with each other. We're trying to lower the boundary to entry it by offering free accommodation. You have to be a FuseNet member to become most of the universities and research institutes you guys work at are a FuseNet member. If you are not aware of that, because that happened at a few times when I talked to people at other conferences, they are not aware that the university is a FuseNet member, you very likely are. If not, ask me, and I will tell you if you're a FuseNet member, then you are eligible for a lot of FuseNet fundings. We have the Teacher Day, where we focus on high school teachers. We provide educational material. We offer mini workshops as well. I haven't talked about that. This year, we will, for the first time, organize a small hackathon, which will first be online, and then we're not yet sure how to make the final setup, but stay tuned. We will announce more soon. The matchmaking is something which has been used a lot recently, and I haven't talked about the mobility funds a lot. So mobility funds is something where you, as a FuseNet member, so if your university is a FuseNet member or a research institute, you can apply for mobility funds, which would allow you to participate at any educational event, for example, a summer school, a winter school, or visit a lab for an internship or something like that. So again, we try to reduce the entry boundaries for that. And finally, our educational philosophy is that we strongly believe in the open educational resources, in open source software that fosters collaboration. This is what we very much want to do. Collaboration is central, I said that, to both open source and fusion research. And I strongly believe, and we do that in FuseNet in general as an association, that diversity is key to success. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for your attention, and thank you very much again for the organizers to giving me that slot. And I'm happy to have any questions now. But also, again, if you want to know anything about FuseNet, just drop me an email, drop me a chat. I will be online here as well, and I'm happy to answer anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alf. it's not an event, but there's a little like applaud emoji if you press 6, I believe. We have a couple questions. One is about, do we have a copy of the slides? I can answer that. So you may see at the top left, cameraman 1 and cameraman 2. These are monitored by our very own James Stark, and we hope that we'll be able to record everything without too much issue and put it either available on YouTube or on our Zenodo community. That's yet to be decided, but yes, we'll try to provide all the slides. And the second question is from Thoy. What about ethnic diversity?
Excellent point. So that's a great point. So we just recently start to collect data on how diverse or how non-diverse our community is. And of course, we are aware of that. It's not only about female and male, it's about ethnicity, it's about religion, it's about disabled people as well. So there are a lot of things we need to take into account. We are well aware of that. However, we just recently started to look into that. But yeah, indeed, I haven't said that. So thanks for bringing that up again.
There's another question from Martin. Are you open to players from outside Europe? Any reservation?
If we are open, yes. So we have some kind of of course. So maybe I should clarify. We provide, for example, if you have a lab outside of Europe and want students to come to your lab from Europe, then they can very much use FuseNet money to go to your lab, if that is something which you were interested in. The other way around, it should work as well if those students come to a place which is a member of FuseNet. Now, if you want to become a FuseNet member being outside of Europe, you can become not a full member, but you become something which is called we have a special name for that. So it is possible that you're a member which, I forgot the official name for that. It's not associated member, but something like that. So if you're interested in something like that, just drop me a line and I look up the details for that, yes.